How can I get my waiver, my interview, adjustment of status interview waived? It's like one of the top questions. Okay. Now, of course, you got to be married to a US citizen. That's number one. Some of y'all are asking these questions, but you're not married, or you're engaged, or you're thinking to be engaged. But like, I want to guarantee, people are like, John, I want to guarantee I can get my interview waived before I get married to this person. I'm sorry. Lawyers can't guarantee this, but we can share the proven checklist. So that's what we're going to talk about. Not so much like checklists, like documentation wise, but some proven strategies that can help you with your case in a scenario that maybe you want to file yourself, or you want to know how we do things. Okay. So yes, in 2023, the trend for marriage-based adjustment cases are that if you filed it in 2023, then you can get your case waived. No interview. 2023. This is honestly amazing, but pretty wild trend in America with USCIS, because if you have a case that's filed before 2023, and definitely when it was during the pandemic or right around like 2019, you definitely know that it takes a hell of a long time. Now, for those folks that you're abroad, or your loved one is abroad outside America, or it's not a marriage case, then this topic for the first 5-10 minutes is not for you necessarily. But you can get an idea. So USCIS, I mean, poor USCIS, the people that work there, I know they try to do a good job. They always claim there's not enough workers. Apparently not enough workers is not a legit reason anymore, because clearly we've noticed in the past 6 months, they've been waiving cases, waiving interviews, and straight to approval. Now, look, they're not going to waive your interview and then go straight to denial. They don't do that. Fortunately, thank goodness, especially for those that have, bad lawyers or a bad experience through another lawyer. I don't want to call the lawyer bad, but some people have bad experiences. Just sometimes it doesn't go through the quality control for some reason, and something was missed. But going back to a topic, a question today, how can I get my case waived, or how can I increase the chances of getting my case waived based on marriage to a U.S. citizen? Number one, file the package with your medical exam. And of course, before you get the medical exam, you have to take the COVID-19 vaccine. I know it's a sore topic for a lot of Americans and people abroad, but you have to take it. Now, if you don't, okay, you don't have to. But then you have to file a 601 waiver. I think it's $900 minimum, $925. And let me see the criteria for that. It's very, very limited. Essentially, you can't just say that you don't want the COVID-19 vaccine. You also basically have to say, well, I don't believe in any vaccine. I will definitely get to you on that. Hey, congrats on your approval, MG. I really appreciate it. Thanks for that comment. That's very nice. I will get to all your questions. Definitely. Please, yes, please be patient. I will get to everyone's questions, because look, I'm on all these different platforms. It's kind of nuts, to be honest. If you asked me a year ago, I would have said I would not be on all these platforms. So yeah, let me just finish up, because I like to share a lot of information. Finish up about the proven checklist, you can say. Number one, the medical exam. They started requiring it. Of course, they base it on the CDC. So if you filed your case after October 1st, 2021, then yes, COVID-19 is required, the vaccine itself. Number one, you have to say that you're opposed to all vaccines. Okay. Number two, that your objection to the vaccine is based on your religious or moral conviction. So I guess most people can say moral conviction, but again, you have to say you didn't take any vaccine. Third thing is that you have to believe that your belief or conviction in that is sincere. Okay. So basically they're trying to say, like, look, you got to be legit, I guess. I don't know how they're going to figure out if it's you saying you don't want to take vaccine is insincere or not, but that's kind of interesting. So that was first thing, right? All that, and that was the one thing. Medical exam. Number two, if this is based on marriage, right? You have to have shared financial account. Now, I'm not saying that every single account has to be in your spouse's name. I know that would freak out a lot of people, but we do receive calls that some people are like, "Oh my gosh, I don't want to include my spouse into my account." Look, I'm sorry. That's just the way it is, okay? Like, yes, I do get it. The checklist that USCIS has on their own website, or even if they send RFE, one of the first things, unfortunately, is like, do you have any children? If you do, share a birth certificate. Obviously, if I had children, I would share it. But look, number one is the shared financial account. Now, it doesn't mean you have to include your spouse as a recipient, I guess, or POD, I think is what banks call it. But you don't have to add that person, that your spouse, as a recipient or based on, I guess you call it death beneficiary is what you call it for your other accounts like 401k, things like that. I think it helps. Why not? Right. But you don't have to create a will. But if you don't have financial accounts and you're a bit weary or for some reason, but a lot of folks are not so much weary. It's more about, we have a lot of people say, well, I don't have a social security number. I don't have a driver license. And that's what most banks want. I'm not sponsored by this bank, but Wells Fargo, if you hear them in the news the past couple of years, they've been creating fake accounts. But I know that bank at least. Maybe you want to check with your local credit union, but I know Wells Fargo, they have open account for a lot of our clients. And some people already have Wells Fargo, but if you're a little hesitant on Wells Fargo, but you're still willing to open it for the purpose of this case, then switch banks in the future. Okay. Yeah. I just think that's weird that Wells Fargo created so many fake accounts. It's just mind boggling. So, but they did it. So just want to say FYI on that, but they have been successful in opening it. Third tip might sound obvious, but I shouldn't say obvious. Don't call it common sense either, but is that you need to provide evidence that you're living together. But if you're not living together, then you have to write a letter saying that maybe your job is in a different location temporarily, maybe because of timing. That happens quite often, especially even before the pandemic. Now, someone's a traveling nurse, but and travels all across the country because hospitals are understaffed. But you're in Houston, for example, but your spouse is traveling all across the country. That may be a situation you want to write a letter to explain it. And not just write a letter, but you want to provide proof that you are a traveling nurse, for example, or your job is relocated temporarily in a different city, so that you don't want U.S. And then in your letter, you can mention, of course, everything has to be true, but your letter would need to mention a bit more specific detail, like, yes, I plan to move back or live with my spouse permanently when I'm able to request a job relocation back. In the meantime, I'm visiting my spouse every other week or something, something like that. Okay. You don't want USCIS to assume things that if they see two different addresses, or even if you put the same address on the website, I'm sorry, the form, you could do that for the mailing address, but you shouldn't lie and say you're living at the same address when one of y'all are at a different location. Okay. Now, if you're in the same city, or one's in the burbs and one's in town, that's a little fishy. Okay. So we need to talk about that. So that's one reason to hire a lawyer to work around that, guide you through that situation. I'll end with that. There's so many more tips, but those are three for today. All right. Take care. Bye bye.